Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
At 9:46 a.m., we continue with the show this morning, and we're taking a look at the 20th anniversary of the opening of the U.S. detention camp at Guantanamo Bay. And the advocacy group Cage has produced a khutbah for imams to deliver on this day of Jummah to remember the forgotten prisoners and Gitmo. Now, when one looks at some of the key issues that are contained in the khutbah, it talks about Guantanamo being the world's most infamous symbol of kidnap, torture, and indefinite imprisonment without charge or trial. Some of the prisoners were subjected to medieval torture techniques like waterboarding. Also, prisoners from 41 countries were subjected to torture, cruelty, inhumanity, and degradation. And at the same time, even the Quran, where prisoners witnessed the Quran being desecrated, spat upon, urinated upon, kicked, and thrown by US soldiers. And this morning, on this anniversary, we are joined by author and journalist from the United Kingdom, Yvonne Ridley. Sister Yvonne, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for inviting me onto Salam Media. It's good to see you again. And I'm so pleased that you've decided to cover this story, because people around the world, many of them still think that Guantanamo is closed and it was, has been an issue that's consigned to the past, when in fact Guantanamo is still very much in operation. It's still operating outside international law in the view of many of us, and so it's quite timely on this anniversary that the advocacy group Cage has brought out this recommended dua for Friday prayers. And I do hope it is something that imams around the world will pick up upon and use in their Friday prayers.
Yes, and I think what Kate is saying, that this is a duty on us as Muslims to highlight this issue on this day of Friday, because, we speak about the desecration of the Quran, and also when one looks at the ordeal of the prisoners, but we know many of these prisoners had actually memorized the Quran during the time that they'd spent in Guantanamo Bay. And I'm sure, you've obviously met up with quite a few of them. One of them we know has been Wazim Beg. But at this point in time, we know that there are still prisoners that are still languishing, 38 from what I led to believe, in Guantanamo, Yvonne.
Yes, well, I went to Guantanamo myself as a visitor with a film crew. We made a film called Inside the Wire, and it was a really traumatic experience for me, just as a visitor, walking into that facility and feeling this great sense of injustice. So it is very important that we remember this anniversary, but it's very important that we continue to act upon calling for the closure of Guantanamo. More than 20 years on, it's quite shocking to believe that in the 21st century, there are men being held there without charge, without trial, by the so-called greatest superpower in the world that likes to think it shines a beacon on justice when, there's this underbelly in occupied Cuba, and it's quite the reverse.
Yes, and when you're speaking about justice, and we know Guantanamo has been criticized around the world for being a black hole of injustice and discrimination, and we've seen this injustice and discrimination in its worst forms, Yvonne.
Absolutely. I mean, just in recent months, we've seen the liberation of Kabul, of Afghanistan. And I'm hoping to go there in a few weeks' time. And one of the places that I've been asked to go to is Bagram, which many of the Guantanamo detainees were put through that experience in Bagram before they even got to Guantanamo. And these are just the prisons that we know about. You know, there are prisons, or there were prisons all around the world where ghost detainees were held before they ended up in Guantanamo. There's still a few men left there. They have a story to tell. You know, you mentioned Mozambique, and he's out, free, cleared of any wrongdoing, and in fact has been compensated by Britain for what he endured in Guantanamo. And even today, you know, when you listen to him about his stories in US captivity, you can't help to be to feel real shock over his treatment. So this is a running sore, Guantanamo, the fact that it is still open today. And as I say, I do hope that imams around the world either use the khutbah that Cage has recommended, or deliver their own Friday lecture and with their own take on Guantanamo. But it is a very important anniversary, and something that we should pick up on Friday and certainly not drop. We should keep this in the public eye until this wretched place is closed.
Yes, and I think just apart from Guantanamo as well, like you mentioned, right across the entire world, Bagram was one. We know the campaign for Afia Siddiqui is ongoing, and she's just another one of those cases, but there are many right across the entire world. And we're not only talking about these black holes in countries like in Guantanamo or Bagram. We're still talking about in the Arab world. We know that there are many prisoners that are languishing in the prisons of Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, and right across the entire world. So this is an opportunity not only to highlight the plight of Guantanamo, but the prison system, the brutal, inhumane prison systems right across the entire world, Sister Yvonne.
Yes, and it's not just in the Middle East, but, to our eternal shame. One little talks about injustice or running sore is in Syria, in the free Syrian territories, where I'm afraid some of the rebels are keeping prisoners, holding them without charge, without trial. And this is, just as bad, if not worse, than Guantanamo. These brothers from the group HTS should know better. I do know that there are attempts being made to introduce a prisoners' charter around the Muslim world, and it's still in its embryonic stages. But I think it's about time that the Middle East and Asia, the Muslim world, in essence, adopts this prisoners' charter, and instead of following the West, we should get the West to follow us in embracing this charter, because it's the 21st century. Men and women and children should not be put on administrative detention. That's what the Israelis call it. Men and women and children should not be held without trial, without charge, anywhere in the world. And this is something that, this awful anniversary should prompt all of us to motivate ourselves and resolve to campaign for justice.
Well, Sister Yvonne, as always, we do appreciate you taking time out, talking to us, and we wish you all the best, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Have yourself a wonderful Friday, a wonderful Jummah.
Thank you so much, and Jummah Mubarak to all your viewers. Thank you.
Yvonne Ridley joining us this morning, and that brings us to the end of the broadcast. And just to remind ourselves that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has reminded us that whoever is not concerned with the affairs of Muslims is not from amongst them. We should remember that Guantanamo Bay is an issue for all Muslims because the only prisoners there are Muslims, and we should work towards the complete dismantling of the infrastructure which made those crimes possible, including the unjust laws, policies, and practices that were created by the so-called war on terror. We're going to go for an ad break, but I'm going to be signing off just before this ad break. Once again, it's been wonderful being in your company on this beautiful day of Jummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you inspired. Allah keep you energized. Allah accept your efforts. Allah accept your du'as on this day of Jummah. And let us remember, recite abundant durood on our beloved Master, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
प्यारे नबी सुन्नत तेरी दुनिया दी ऐ नबी तेरे दर पे आए जो दामन कबर ले जाए वो उन जालियों की शान क्या
Listen to something fresh.